This week, we're setting the popcorn time machine back to May 10th, 1996, and buckling up for the ride we never did forget. Thunder's roaring, the wind chimes are chiming, and houses are flying. Anchor yourself down because we're going right for the core of the storm and sending Dorothy on her way. We gotta go. We got cows. Welcome back to another edition of the Popcorn Time Machine, where we rewatch, rewind, and react to all of those 80s and 90s classics. This week, we are diving into the 1996 disaster movie that is Twister. Now, obviously, we're getting a sequel of sorts this in a couple weeks, actually. Starring, I think it's Glenn Powell's in that one, and it seems like it's not as much tracking the storms and like trying to figure out how to destroy the storms. So I'm very interested to see it. The trailers looked really, really good. If you asked me if this was a movie that I think we'd see a sequel to, I probably would have said no, but here we are. Let's talk about it. So we got Jimmy and Diaz with us tonight. And first, when you saw this, was I the only one that decided like, oh, this is what I want to do? I'm going to go chase storms now.
Dude, it was awesome. Like, I didn't even know storm chasing was a thing till this movie, and I was like, dude, that's a profession. Yeah.
I was always scared of this movie as a kid. Like in the opening scene when the dad just gets ripped out from the basement, and this movie always scared me. So this movie definitely did not make me want to chase storms, but to get as far away as possible from them.
I was a city boy, so I was like, does this shit happen in the woods and the boonies? Like, is this how it is not in the city?
Yeah, I mean, this thing was a huge, huge success. It debuted with $41.1 million at the box office domestic, and it was the number one movie for the week. And then throughout its entire run, it made nearly $500 million worldwide. And the only movie in 96 to make more money. Do you know what movie that is, Jimmy? Or Diaz?
In what movie? Well, I'm sorry.
So there was only one movie that year to make more money than Twister. Do you know what movie that is?
And what year is this? 96. 96. Independence Day.
That would be correct.
Yep. So, I mean, it's
yes,
crazy.
I can't wait.
It's crazy that a movie like this really took off, because some of the thoughts that I had when watching this movie too is like, was this more impactful to people in that tornado alley? Like, like you said, Diaz, you're a city boy. Like, obviously it's still scary, but it's like, we're not necessarily the target audience.
Yeah.
So I was like curious that such a small, localized aspect of living, like, hit home to everybody across the nation and worldwide.
I feel like it's destruction, and people love seeing things destroyed, regardless if it's a 100-foot monster or a natural element like a storm, or like people like to see things torn to pieces and ripped.
How many disaster movies were before this, though? Like,
so that was my next point. This sort of kicked off this run of disaster movies, because we had Dante's Peak in 97. If you want to count Titanic, you can count it. That's 97. Deep Impact in 98, Armageddon 98, The Perfect Storm in 2000, The Core in 2003, Day After Tomorrow in 2004. And there was a couple smaller ones in there too. And then it sort of went dormant. And I feel like the disaster movies lately, and maybe not lately, but like the 2013s kind of made a big comeback you had like Geostorm and stuff like that, where it kind of had this resurgence. But yeah, I mean, it does feel like there had to have been disaster movies before, but I can't really recall any big ones.
I'm blanking. I'm sure if Kevin was here, he'd help us out. If there's,
but I'm definitely with Jimmy though. People do like destruction, and that was I remember, because I'm a little older than you guys, so I remember a little bit of the marketing for it. They just showed like the cow in the air floating.
That was a big thing.
You didn't, because it just said Twisted. It just showed the cow in the air, and it was like, oh, okay. And then like if I remember that, the teasers was just wind in the theater, like it was just sound and like it's coming, or like the storm is on the way. So great marketing for it, but no one knew. We knew it was going to be about a tornado or tornadoes, but we have no idea it was going to be like this.
Yeah. So this movie was directed by John DuPont. He did Speed, Speed 2, The Haunting, and the Laura Croft movie, I think, with Angelina Jolie. He was famously more a cinematographer before he kind of got the call up to do Speed. And then he did Speed. I think he went right from Speed to Twister, and then he did Speed 2, The Haunting, Laura Croft, and then it kind of not necessarily got blacklisted, but didn't have a good run there. So they pumped the brakes on this guy.
Hey, whoa, they do not hate on Speed 2. Cruise control.
But he was actually originally supposed to direct Minority Report in 2002, but I think because of the reception of The Haunting, Spielberg fired him because that was just. It's crazy that he fumbled that so poorly because you look at the success of The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix currently, and it's just the same story. That's all it was. But I think that one had like Owen Wilson and I forget who else was in that one.
Well,
but I'd like to watch that one just to see how it compares.
How bad it was.
Yeah.
A little thing
wasn't
about
Catherine Zeta-Jones? No, was Catherine Zeta-Jones in that? Jimmy?
The Haunting?
Wasn't she in
it was Liam
movie?
Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Owen Wilson.
Okay.
Oh boy, this is bad. Who's the woman who becomes possessed in the very first Conjuring movie? She's like the main character in The Haunting. I'm blanking on her name.
But that lady.
Yeah, that lady. But she's like the main character in it. And then
Lil no, it's not Will Taylor, right?
No.
I don't know. But yeah, there's been mixed things about DuPont. He was supposedly like a terror on the shoot. Everyone was like really hated him. He was just wildly out of control. He was just angry. He knocked over some like camera assistants because they missed like a cue. It just felt like I don't want to say he lucked into Speed, but the experience kind of was starting to show on this set.
Well, here's an interesting thing for how Roland Emmerich and Jan de Bont will forever be linked together. So Jan de Bont actually was attached to direct the 1994 Godzilla movie. And his two characters that he wanted for the main leads were Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. He asked for, at the time, I think he asked for around $150 million. I mean, the script's great. It's actually, you can literally Google it, and the script is pretty cool. But I believe Sony or TriStar wouldn't give him that money. Well, in that same year, Twister's Independence Day is made, and Roland Emmerich turned down that film multiple times because he wasn't a fan, he didn't care, blah blah blah. But Roland Emmerich asked for like around 150, 100 to like 170 million or something crazy like that, and they gave it to him. So forever, Jan de Bont, Godzilla, and Roland Emmerich will be tied together.
Yeah. The executive producer on this was Steven Spielberg. He was actually supposed to direct this, but then he left the role, remained as EP, and I think Zemeckis, who we talked about previously on Back to the Future, his friend was kind of in the running for the film, and so was James Cameron. But then the Speed director kind of got the gig, John DuPont, after he left Godzilla. He kind of became available, so that's how he kind of weaseled his way in there. So Spielberg was really gunning for either Cameron or Zemeckis or John Badden to take over this as director once he decided to leave.
Cameron would have put a nice little spin on this.
I mean, that would have been a run right there too for him. You throw that in the middle of everything that he was doing at the time. T2, a year before Titanic. I mean, maybe he wouldn't have made Titanic. I don't know when they were filming all that stuff for it, but I mean, that would have just been another little feather in his cap there because it was just it would have been just as good, if not better, I think.
Yeah.
But Jimmy already mentioned them. This is starring Helen Hunt, who was kind of at the point known for, I think, As Good as It Gets was sort of her big thing, and
Mad About You.
And Mad About You, yeah.
Paul Reiser, and pretty good sitcom.
But it's funny too because she got the role of Joe, but she wasn't the only one up for the role. I think Lauren Dern was up there as well, who was in Jurassic Park. And then I think they also considered Bridget Fonda and Kate Mulgrew. So she kind of won it out, which is cool that there was all these other actors and actresses for these parts. And going back to the Godzilla thing, John DeBont got the crew that he wanted, which is interesting. But we got Bill Paxton from Aliens, Apollo 13. This was, again, we'll talk about other actors, but this was also getting close to being a Tom Hanks movie. Tom Hanks was the original choice.
I would have liked it.
I think he left to either direct something. I think it was his directorial debut, or he was getting ready for, or they already wrapped Apollo 13, but Hanks kind of ushered in Paxton because of their time together and kind of offered him up there. But Tom Hanks even went in for fittings for this. Like, it was close. It's not just like a name thrown at the dartboard. He was actually, working his way to taking that thing. Obviously, Bill Paxton has since passed. He died in 2017, but a cool little homage that they did. The Spotter Network, which is sort of like a Storm Chasers or whatever like that, they choreographed 200 Storm Chasers to spell out BP with like GPS trackers, and they would like blip on the radar to honor him.
That's awesome.
Only a few people they've done this for, and he's the only non-meteorologist, storm tracker, or whatever. So it was a nice little payout to him back in 2017. And then I thought a funny little moment was he mentioned that he didn't even meet Spielberg until a year and a half after they finished this movie. And all Spielberg came up to him and said was, "Hey, thanks for making me a lot of money."
Right to the point, baby. Right to the point.
But Jimmy, I'm going to need you to help me out with a lot of these other actors and actresses, because this is an ensemble movie. As much as like I forgot that it was, because I always am like, oh yeah, there's Bill, there's Joe, and there's like 2 or 3 others. Like, no, there's like 6 or 8 others plus side characters plus your second antagonist, because the Twisters are number 1, but there's a lot of crew in there, and I know you kind of have them knocked down a little bit.
Well, we've got, I would think the comic relief and Dustin, who's portrayed by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's famous for Capote and the Hunger Games franchise.
Inventing Shart. Remember, I sharted.
Red Dragon.
This was a very early one for him too, because I almost didn't recognize him, because I remember him for Hunger Games and being a lot older and stuff like that. But seeing him as like, not necessarily a kid. I mean, I think he played the character younger than he was, but he came out looking younger because of it.
He was in Patch Adams too. I watched Patch Adams the other day. He was the guy, one of Patch's roommates at one point in college. Mm-hmm. He played a doctor, a surgeon in Patch Adams too.
Then we have Jonas, who's the rival storm chaser, played by the famous who I cannot pronounce his last name. I'm so sorry. Cary Elwes, I believe. But he's definitely famous for playing Wesley in The Princess Bride and Robin Hood Men in Tights. And then he was the very first. He's the guy who saws off his foot in Saw.
Yeah.
Yep.
I forgot about that.
He's the doctor.
Oh, Dr. Gordon.
Oh, he's also the mayor in Stranger Things.
He is the mayor.
Yep.
How did I forget that?
Yes. He's I forgot all about that.
Yep,
how the hell did we forget that?
Yep.
Then let's move on to the lovely Jamie Gertz, who plays Dr. Melissa, who is the fiance to now a Bill Harding, played by Bill Paxton. She's had an interesting career. One of her very first roles, she plays the love interest to, I believe his name was Michael in The Lost Boys. But since then, she's kind of had smaller roles. I think the biggest thing she's known for is that her husband and her own the Atlanta Hawks. She was on the early 2000s comedy Still Standing. That was a good one. I like that a lot. And then you got
that was a good movie. That was a good movie.
You got one of my favorites, Alan Ruck, who's kind of always been that actor. I feel like that's just been there. He's most probably famous for playing Cameron, Ferris's best friend in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But he had a great, he had a great run on Spin City with Michael J. Fox, Charlie
Oh.
Sheen. He played the office pervert named Stuart.
Stewart.
Then you have let's see, I've got a few others. This is a big cast. What did I do with it?
Because they got like 8 people in their like little ragtag group, and most of them don't even really get lines or screen time. They're just sort of bodies.
Right. Exactly. Let me just pull it up. Sorry about that. There's Joey Slotnick who plays Joey. He's the in the movies like the curly haired guy. He literally has like maybe 2 or 3 lines. But he was in Nip Tuck for a while. He was in Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon.
Awesome too.
You have a very, 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 very young Alexa Vega. You all remember Alexa Vega? She was in a Spy Kids as as Carmen, and has been in a ton of Robert Rodriguez pictures and stuff. So that's her. That's little Joe in the very opening scene is Alexa Vega. Zach Grenier plays Eddie, who's the Jonas's driver, who kind of always tries to be the voice of reason for Jonah. He plays Edward Norton's boss in Fight Club. He plays one of the I want to say shareholders of Callahan Auto Parts in Tommy Boy.
Tommy Boy, yep.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it as far as like
the bigger names.
Yeah, the bigger names and stuff. Yeah, I would say that's pretty much the cast. I mean, obviously, no Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. Bill Paxton is the only person in Hollywood history to be killed by a xenomorph, Terminator, and Predator, all within a 9-year span.
And he almost added tornadoes to that list as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is very close. Yep. But this script was kind of shopped around for a little bit. This was written by Michael Crichton from more so. Well, he writes a lot of movies too, but he writes the novels as well. But obviously, famously known for Jurassic Park. And Anne-Marie Martin also wrote this, but this was her only writing credit of note that I could find, or that she was kind of known for. But they did bring in people to punch this script up a lot. They at one point brought in Joss Whedon. And they were paying him like $100,000 a week or to punch it up. And there's really, I don't know what for. Like, there's not dialogue that's being punched up. There's not a lot of back and forth.
He's good with ensembles, though. If you look at his best work with ensembles, this has a big cast. So maybe he wanted to make sure like they needed someone to give certain lines to the right side characters. Like he could have wrote some of Dustin's lines, some of the one-liners that are pointless. Like there's a lot of characters that have really good random lines. So he could have been just for that.
Funny note, Anne-Marie and Michael were married at the time they wrote this.
Oh, well, that makes sense then. Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. All right, well, let's jump into our initial thoughts of this movie. So right out of the gate, what did everybody think of this movie just overall?
Total nostalgia. I haven't seen this movie in a long, long time. And it's fun. It's a blast. It's just, it's nothing. You literally get what you see, and it's just a fun summer blockbuster. Or I don't know when but it's got summer blockbuster written all over it, and it's just a fun film. It's a really fast 2-hour flick.
Yeah, I think for me too, this, like you said, nostalgia plays a huge role in this. This definitely brought me back, and this was a summer flick. This came out in May, I think it was.
Okay. Yep.
So it definitely like kicked off that season. But yeah, I remember seeing this movie growing up as like, I think a VHS. I think this was like a movie that my grandmother had owned, and we would just watch it either at her house, or we would take a lot of cross-country trips from Massachusetts to Florida, so we'd watch it in the car and stuff like that, in the old kind of RV with the tiny little 5-inch TV in the in the thing and rocking it. It's got a lot of nostalgia factors for me. It, I think, holds up pretty well. I think there's only a few moments of
well, there's that opening scene. It's awful.
That CGI is like the meh part, but when you get into it, it's not that bad. Everything else, the satellite.
The Earth that's like literally just it looks like it's awful. But
not
like
a great shot to open on because you think the whole movie's going to be like that, but it's really I really think they pick it up.
Yeah, the tornadoes aren't bad at all for being almost 30 years old. I mean, the special effects aren't that bad. This just brings back a whole bunch of memories. I just used to watch it as a kid all the time, and I remember just the dad just gets sucked up. In the
scared the shit out of me.
That's how
you think no matter where you are, a twister's coming now.
This movie definitely introduced me to The Shining when they're all in the drive-through theater.
I think it introduced a lot of people to that. But Diaz, what are your initial thoughts of this movie?
When I first saw it and seeing it back now, I remember thinking, this is the future of movies. Like the sound, the capabilities of what it would be like. Like I said, to me, it was the first disaster movie I saw, and it made me think of all types of crazy scenarios. Like, what would that do to the city? What would that do to Manhattan? Like, can a twister happen in places like that? Like, what would my family do? We don't have a basement. Where the hell are we gonna hide? Yeah. I just remember going, it made it relatable for people that were nowhere near it. And the sound of that movie had me hyped for movies in general. Because if you can make it sound like that, it made wind and everything just sound crazy. So in my head, as a kid, I was like, war movies are going to be better. Action movies are going to be better. Car chases are going to be better. Everything's going to be better just because of the sound. The sound of this movie is what got me excited.
Yeah, I really just it definitely takes you back. So let's get into the running solo award before we dive into this movie. So what was like the one thing that stuck out in this movie to you as being like the clear cut, this thing is like made this movie? Diaz, I'll let you go. I think Jimmy's muted right now. So Diaz, you can tag on.
It's basically what the nostalgic thing I liked about it the most, the sound.
Yeah.
The sound to me made this whole movie. Like from the beginning when it was showing the WB studio symbol and the word twister is twisting at the screen, just that wind and that whistling and then the thunder and the lightning. This was before 4D theaters or even before 3D came back for that weird phase that everything was 3D.
Yeah.
This was the first thing that you could almost feel. Like this was like what surround sound was created for, was for something like this, where you could hear it over here, feel it over there. The hell is that? It made you look around. That's the sound of this movie stole the show for me.
This would have been a sweet IMAX movie.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like this movie is famously known for back then like blowing out all the theater speakers. Like because of how deep the bass is and everything. Like it was blowing out people's TV speakers. Like this thing packed a punch. So Jimmy, what would be your running solo award for this movie?
I like the thrill of the chase. I love when Bill's group of ragtag storm chasers, stormtroopers,
Darth Vader.
They messed up a chance to call themselves that too.
Right, that was funny. And like Jonah's group, and they're all racing to get to the twisters and stuff. I always like that. I think it's a lot of fun, like the rivalries between the two. It's just fun, man. It's so fast paced. It's a blast. It's so much fun.
It is crazy because this movie moves for me very fast. Like it's because it only takes place over like a day or two. Like they go from one storm to another storm to another storm. It's very fast paced for me. But I'd say for the running solo, I think it's like a combination of Diaz's mixed with like the CGI of the tornadoes. I think the twisters came out looking amazing. I think they still have, a presence.
They still kind of hold up.
When you see that F5 at the end and it's just this big black cyclone and you're like,
the finger of God.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think that stuff still holds up for me. My biggest thing was are tornadoes this common? Because they chased like 7 in one day, I swear.
Hey, yo, that's what my wife said. That's exactly what Brittany said. Brittany just watched it for the first time and she was like, yo, so they got hit with 7 tornadoes in a day.
And they gradually went. It was like, all right, F1, F2, F3, F4, F5. It just was like perfect order. But it's like, again, not being from those areas in that, tornado alley, the Oklahoma, Kansas, Illinois, wherever they are more common. I mean, I would love the answer to that question of if they're that common to be hitting so back to back. And my other thing was like, I guess, I mean, it makes sense for this, but what do you think this was scarier for people in that area? Because I was scared of it hitting us, and it's like, yeah, tornadoes don't hit up here. I mean, they can hit anywhere really, but it's not really common.
I don't know, man. I mean, were you scared of like the perfect storm? Because that's what we get. We get like the hurricanes and the tropical storms. I mean, to me, it's like, that's sweet. Like it's
if I was on the boat,
like,
I'd probably be more scared of the perfect storm.
Oh yeah. But like as a local New Englander and stuff, like we get
so like the nor'easters, like the snowstorms from up north.
Yeah,
we never had snowstorm, then snowstorm, then snowstorm,
right?
Then snowstorm though. Like
where's the blizzard natural disaster movies? Like I know Day After Tomorrow kind of touches on it, but it touches on every element. Where's the straight up like blizzard natural disaster?
There's ice that doesn't stop.
It's like you just get caved in. It turns into like almost a Saw survival movie. Somebody tries to venture out. I think there's something there.
There's their $100 million idea, dude.
Right? I think there's something there. All right. Let's get into the reviews. Rotten Tomatoes has this at a 63% from the critics and a 58% of the audience. I thought this would be higher. I thought they'd be higher.
Wow.
I'm surprised that the critics were that low, and I'm surprised the audience wasn't in the 80s. I figured this would be a more beloved movie. I really did.
I figured the critic score, I think, is right where it needs to be. I thought like the audience score would be like, yeah, much more favorable. It's weird. It's very weird.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to see when Twisters comes out what the ratings are going to be like. Is it going to be a similar thing where it's like kind of in the middle, or is it going to be like a big fan loved thing? The critics might not like it. I'm curious because I think that might be where it might be leaning. But let's get into like a little good review. This is from Anne Hornaday. The storms are breathtaking, the action pulse quickening, and the two leads smart and likable. Pretty good overall rundown. I agree with most of that. Let's get into this bad one. Jeff Andrew. He must have been having a bad day. Effects apart. This is dire, predictable, cliched, sloppily written, pitifully performed, and surprisingly short of real shocks and suspense.
Bummer.
I don't know if we watched the same movie there, Jeff. I don't know. I can give you predictable, maybe a little bit of cliche, but I don't think the writing was sloppy. I thought the performances were actually really good, and I think the suspense was there. I think the suspense could have gotten drawn out more, but I don't think there was a lacking of suspense.
I feel like this film turned Bill Paxton into like a real leading man too. I know he doesn't have like super great acting shot. He's not like a bad actor but I mean, he's always been kind of just that side character for a long time, Aliens, Terminator, Apollo 13. He's always just kind of
a side guy.
Yeah, and this kind of really made him into a leading man. I think he did well. I like his character. I like Bill.
My thing is, Mr. Andrew said it was predictable. Yeah, what the hell do you know about tornadoes? The whole concept of this movie is that they're unpredictable. What did you expect?
Right.
Like, what was predictable?
I knew it was going to shift to the left.
Yeah, like this huge ensemble.
That's why they're trying to get Dorothy up there.
Where was the death? There wasn't that much death for a huge ensemble, Andrew.
Yep.
Predictable. My ass.
Yep. All right, let's get into real talk where we kind of really dive into this movie. Now, previously we kind of went chapter by chapter, scene by scene, and broke it down. But I think it'd be more fluid if we kind of took our Stop It segment and put it here. So Stop It. This is where we're just going to point out our favorite scenes, stuff that we just really enjoyed. It doesn't have to be necessarily in any order of the movie, but I think by us going over our favorite scenes, we'll pretty much check the box of going through the movie anyways. So I personally had as one of my Stop It scenes was just that intro. That opening scene really set the stage. It kicked it off. It made you afraid. The only downfall of that scene was the dad could have definitely survived. Like, you just had to go downstairs. Like, just take the door. The dude was holding on the door. Like, just Joe survived. The mom survived. all you had to do was go down the stairs and kind of hide away a little bit with the family, and it would have brushed
Yeah,
over. I think.
good point on that. It's true because the door left and no one else got sucked up.
No,
So if he would have not held on to the door, he would have been fine.
not even the dog. But I mean, I liked it because it really set the stage. Like I said, the only downfall of it is the stakes never reached that moment again. Like you just mentioned, Diaz, nobody really died other than like the rival and the driver.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think this movie could have benefited from, some of the crew getting picked off. There should have been a cost.
That's probably what's going to happen in the sequel. That's going to be a change. There's going to be casualties galore in the sequel. There's always more death in sequels anyway, but that's probably one of the things they're going to change.
Well, especially how many times like they all go back when they should be like they go back for someone or something, and where they should all be just seeking shelter. And I mean, the one guy did get hit in the head with a film canister.
Yeah, right. Like could have taken him out there. Like you got to have one casualty at least, I'd say. What's another scene that one of y'all had kind of written down for this?
I totally agree with the intro and stuff. I really love the eeriness of when things are finally calm and everyone's kind of like just chilling and they're just trying to get their wits about them and they're at the drive-in theater and then all of a sudden the TVs all start flickering and then it hits them right at the right in the drive-in theater and then like their Joe's aunt. All of a sudden her like wind chimes are like her man, like her specially.
The slow burn, burn.
They're all like going off, and she's her TV starts flickering and stuff. That's a great scene, and it just tears right through everything.
I like that scene a lot because that one it was kind of that last minute touchdown. You kind of were off edge a little bit, and then you had a lot of great action that scene because they go into that like whatever it was like a hangar or garage, but you had. The roof was coming off, the sign came through, the cars came through, glass was going everywhere. Like you said, you got hit in the face with a canister or whatever, or a hubcap. It might have been a hubcap, but I thought the action in that was really, really good. And that led us right into the like, it's in the Wataka path. Like that's Aunt Meg's house. We got to go. And they took off, and then Melissa leaves Bill at that moment.
Yeah,
and she knows at that point, like. All right, this is Bill's kind of life. He's not over her. I'm so out of my element. It's time for me to get out of here.
I do feel kind of bad for her because I've like rewatching this. How many times Bill Paxton just dumps her off to Philip Seymour Hoffman's Dustin and just bails on her.
I'll be talking about that later.
And then they're just always of course like Joe and Bill are just always alone together and rekindling that romance of storm chasing.
They're playing grab ass under the bridge. They're holding hands when trying to figure out who's talking on the walkie. Like,
but yeah, you go with the creepy Philip Seymour Hoffman character, Dustin.
Diaz, what was one of your scenes that you really, really liked on this one?
I liked how it just got more and more crazy. Like the first tornado hit, they held onto a log. The truck went up nonchalantly. Who the fuck doesn't get mad that their truck is gone?
Yeah, right.
Where's my truck? You know how much cars are. Cars are expensive as shit. There's no way it is nonchalant like, let's just leave my car here and keep chasing the tornadoes.
Yeah, and that's a good looking truck too. All the other vehicles are kind of like Mad Max. Like you got the Winnebago where it's like was it the barn burner or something like that? They have it like spray painted and shit. Like everything else is this hodgepodge like do it yourself. But then her truck was actually pretty nice.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's like a vintage Jeep.
Yeah, my wife looked it up. My wife said, that car is awesome. She looked up the truck. Right now, you can get that for $38,000.
Wow. Still holds value.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I love that scene.
Yeah, like that original, when you first saw the tornado hit them, I was like, okay, it's going to be this type of movie.
Yeah. That was, I'm trying to figure out, but that one was definitely in my list, and it's weirdly staggered in how they do it, but... I liked that introduction of the like secondary team. The what would you say? What was his name again, Jimmy? The
Jonas.
Yeah, their whole team. How Dorothy was stolen, and that's kind of like our villain, so to speak, because you got to have some sort of rival other than just the tornadoes, I think. Well, but I really liked that.
I love how they roll up too, and like just black vehicles, like
all black, like backed from whatever the government or
Dodge
something.
minivans.
Yeah. Yo, no, it's crazy though too, Nick. But in reality, was he a villain? Because they said they went to school together, and he took the corporate route for he was in it for the money. I was in it for the science.
Yeah.
Yo,
they're
listen,
rivals, I think.
yeah, life is life, baby. You need money to live.
Yeah.
Having all this science, not being able to fund your own research, you won't be able to get what you need to have done. So you need funding in some sort of way. I think I might have been Team Jonas on this.
Right. Sorry, I didn't want to live off of Aunt Meg's steak and eggs.
Exactly.
Those sticks look awfully good.
Look good.
Right?
Yo, they did.
Oh, that got me hungry. That got me real hungry.
That mashed potatoes and gravy.
I was just gonna say that gravy. I thought it was like a bowl of A1 sauce. I've never seen gravy so dark.
But yeah, I liked that intro of Jonas, and that one kind of led right into the scene you were talking about, Diaz, where they kind of go by, and then you have still Philip Seymour Hoffman like flipping them all off and telling them to get out of here. They missed it, but I thought that was a good introduction of characters, and that's really the hook that got Bill into this, because that was like they kind of, I don't know if they didn't really go in depth about how they stole this technology, but they used his idea and built their version of it versus his. So it's like, no, I got to come back and make sure that it's done right.
Well, Jonah kind of mentions it. He's like, well, it was like a dream that was never like materialized. So like I built it, and yeah. So he didn't steal it, but
also remember, Bill stopped. Bill left. So if Jonas is still doing, he don't know what Joe's doing.
Yeah,
he knew Bill was doing it, and Bill quit. So if you quit with a good idea that you leave on the table, I think anyone might have would have done that. Like, Nick, you do podcasts. We're doing it. If you leave podcasts and someone goes, "That's a good idea," yeah, they might have stolen your idea, but you left.
Yeah, that's on you now.
Yeah,
but I think that scene also told us a lot about Joe. That's kind of where we got the inkling that she's not over Bill, because I think that was when her and Melissa were in the diner area when she was getting like the to-go coffees, or not the coffees, the lemonades. And she's like, "You're not over him," and she doesn't really answer him, and she just pays the tab and walks out. You're like, okay,
she also didn't sign the last page of the divorce papers.
Yeah, and that's like the telltale sign of like she's just trying not to let this thing go. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the steak and eggs. That I did like that scene too. I think I heard a lot of people talking that they weren't a fan of this scene. I thought it was fun. You got to see the crew, like you got to see the different personalities of everybody there. You got the funny story of evil Bill when he was, drunk and naked and throwing the Jack Daniels bottle at the tornado, saying like, "Suck this up" or something like this. But I like that.
The extreme.
Yeah. It kind of set the stage too, because it did tell us that Joe was the only one in this crew to see an F5. And it's like, okay, now we know where this is going to eventually escalate towards.
And that was the one she saw as a child, right?
Yeah.
What do they call it? The finger of God?
Yeah.
F5?
Yeah. The Brock Lesnar finisher.
Yeah.
I really liked the back building twisters when they were on the road, when they split into sisters. That was kind of a pretty good little spot right there.
Those were on the water too, so that was cool to see water twisting like that.
It was nice because it felt like every single twister was different. Like you had the bridge one, you had them on the bridge with the waters, you had the third one with like I think that was when the trees were the F5 at the end. But it's tough to keep all the twister scenes together, but they are like staged and set up a little bit different.
Twister was the one with the cow. With the cow was the third one.
That was the water, by the water, yeah.
Another great scene, when the F5 picks up the oil tanker, drops it, and they drive right through the flames.
Yep, through the flame and then through the house. Yeah. I mean, that whole climax I have is like one big, long, good scene, because you have the Dorothy 3, they put it in place, and it's like not picking up, and then a tree knocks it all over. It seems like the failure, it starts to shift. It's right in their path. They get stuck on the tree. The tanker pushes them, and they're trying to like run for their lives. That whole scene from there to the end is, I just thought, really good. Then they ghost ride in the whip into the cornfield and put that thing right into there. I kind of tied that all together because they punch it right into the middle there, and then they realize, oh no, it's shifting back towards us. They run out. They find this the barn full of shears and metal and saws. Like, yeah, this is not. That's all coming for us.
What kind of family is
Yeah,
this?
it's the Texas Chainsaw family. It's the
Yeah,
Hewitt. It's the
exactly.
Hewitt family. But I did find it funny. It was almost like the Twister was angry at them. It's like,
Yeah.
how dare you try to defeat me? And it turns back and comes back towards Joe. It's like, I've claimed your father. I need to claim you now.
Yeah.
Well, I love how
But
there's like with these inanimate or like you know like this kind of reminds me of you ever see the movie Duel with like I think it's like Steven Spielberg's first film where the guy's being stalked by that trucker and
okay, I haven't
it's
seen
so
that one,
funny.
but
Like it's this rusty looking truck and stuff, but like the truck makes noises like like an animal and stuff, especially when it falls down the cliff. And I feel like these tornadoes make like animal sounds when they touch down, like they like growl and stuff. To
so
kind of give them a little.
that's funny. So they did to get the sounds for the Twisters, they combined like some kind of Boeing engine, but they also used the sound of a camel. I think it was like moaning or groaning, and they like slowed it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Weird,
Just to kind of
weird
give them
how they
that
do
like
that with sounds.
yeah.
I did find the ending a little bit maybe of poor taste. They're like all cheering and like happy and high fiving, and then this family comes out of the bunker after their entire house and farm and everything was destroyed, and they're over here just like celebrating. These poor bastards, like who knows what got killed, who knows what's gone. Like they're screwed.
And who's to say it's
But
not going to come back?
yeah, right,
Tornado season clearly just started in this movie.
right.
You got a long summer ahead of them.
That weekend.
Yeah.
And then I think the last scene I had was a little bit before this was this was when Bill and Joe really had it like that heated discussion where it clearly and it was playing over the radio into the car, so Melissa heard it too.
Oh, in the rain, Nick. I was just about
Yep.
to say that too. Same exact thing.
I thought this was like a master class of acting. I think this was the best acting in this movie. It was believable. It was passionate. I really enjoyed it. But it was the whole like you got to look at what's in front of you, like me, like blah blah blah. And it's like okay, like this is where the kind of shoe finally dropped. Like
That's my two favorite quotes in the whole movie. You don't know what it's like to see
right.
it pass that house, this house,
mm-hmm.
and then come for you.
Yeah,
So,
and he had to, yeah.
I find that scene okay. So yeah, the acting's great, right? That is a pretty solid moment between Joe and Bill. I will say, it's insane that those CB radios picked up that in all the cars, just so like no one's touching the hand mic or anything, and it just picks up their entire conversation clear as day.
Yeah.
Like, and I was sitting there watching that, and I was like, never picked up on that.
Yeah.
Those awesome
I can see that.
Shack CV radios. But no, that is a great scene between like Paxton and Helen Hunt.
Yeah. Any other like of your favorite scenes or that kind of? I think we pretty much hit on most of the scenes. This movie was pretty like to the point. Like it was tornado, climax, end.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy because watching it, like I said, that scene in the rain. I didn't remember that scene in the rain. Those love lines and the back and forth with them. Mm-hmm. Like I said, those are my two best quotes are from that scene. Yeah. But in reality, this movie wasn't really about Twisters as much as we think. Love story about people that used to chase Twisters.
Yeah.
And the love of the chase that made them chase each other once again.
Yeah.
That's the movie. It's the truth.
Though. It really is. When you boil it down to it, that's really what it is. A couple little fun facts before we dive into some of our segments. This was actually the first movie released on DVD. This was right at the switch over from VHS to DVD. And this was the very first one. They had other movies, like I think Blade Runner and The Fugitive were released with the first DVD players in Japan. But that was before it hit the domestic market. But this was the first DVD, which is pretty crazy. That it was that right at that time frame. I thought it was a little bit earlier, but
I was young, but I remember the marketing for this when it came on DVD. If you were to go to like electronic stores like Circuit City, I don't know. I'm trying to Radio
Best
Shack.
Buy, Radio Shack.
That's it. When you went to those stores for the display, they had the TV display, they had the DVD player, they had like in a case Twister on DVD. They were selling the DVD player in box sets with Twister as watch the first film on your brand new DVD player. and you can hear the sound quality that's different from VHS to DVD. They used right when Twister came out, the first format. It came out on VHS too, but they
Yep.
pushed it on DVD to show these DVD players are meant for movies of this quality,
Yeah.
and that's when it first dropped. I remember that in the stores.
I used to love the original like promotional poster for it, where it's like a yellow sunset with silhouettes, the black and there's like a black Twister coming down from like the upper left hand corner. I think you see two silhouettes of probably like Paxton and Helen hunting like in the field, and it's got the sweet like white slanted print that says Twister. I used to love that like poster. That was like a wicked famous like that was their promotional like poster for a long time. I used to love that.
Yeah. So let's get into our segments. Oh, actually, sorry. One more little like somber, sad, depressing fact. But this was filming in Oklahoma, and they had to delay it because of the bombings of the federal building in the Oklahoma City bombings. And it was April 19th, 1995. And they kind of postponed shooting a little bit. The cast and crew actually went and helped with recovery efforts, which was pretty cool on their part. But yeah, that happened right in this time frame because they were filming in Oklahoma because they wanted to film on set, pretty much in person right there. So let's move into our segments then. So segments, Diaz, do you have a stack it up for us on this for this movie?
Jimmy mentioned them. Let's go disaster. It's gonna be a stack up, better or worse. The stack will be different this time.
All right.
This disaster movie, this great crazy Twister movie, or Volcano.
Ooh, two completely different elements here. That's what I like, is that they're completely different natural disasters. I love this style of movies. That's a tough one, though. I don't know, Jim. What do you think? What do you think? I know you like Volcano.
Volcano had Tommy Lee.
Yeah, and that's probably like where the tiebreaker goes. I love Tommy Lee Jones, so anytime he rescues downtown Los Angeles from a random dormant volcano, you gotta give. But
so I got two volcanoes. Nick, you going Volcano as well?
I'll go Twister. I really like this movie. Yeah, I really do like this movie. I think it's a lot different. Obviously the volcano in LA is like kind of an absurd topic, but like when you go to the other ones like Deep Impact and Core, and I feel like volcanoes are used a fair amount versus like Twisters. I don't know. I feel like this was like the first time that this was like a prominent villain, so to speak, in disaster form.
So 1-1. I'll only give it to Twister because it came out first. Mm-hmm. So it had more heart. Like I've had more tie to it because it was the first one that came out.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that Twister overall is the bigger movie for sure. Because I think Volcano's the type of movie that kind of gets lost in the shuffle because I think Dante's Peak they both came out I think the same year, and I think Dante's Peak was a better film. But
okay, yeah. Dante or Twister?
Yeah,
then Twister. I'll go Twister.
All right.
Yeah.
This is like. I feel like this put disaster movies on the map, because then.
Ooh, okay. So it's better than better than the Volcano series. All the Volcano movies, boom, Twister. Let's go to the asteroid movies. Oh, global disaster.
Yeah.
Is Twister better than Deep Impact or Armageddon?
Deep Impact,
I feel that's tough.
Deep Impact to me, I feel like is a slow burn because you're waiting. The entire movie is like, oh, the asteroid is on a collision course to us, and you spend most of the movie with everyone like
getting to know the characters. You're right.
Like this goes from Twister to Twister to Twister right off the bat. Like it's just a full blown movie full of 20. Like you get exactly what you pay for. You really have to wait for that giant tidal wave to hit San Francisco or whatever it is to Deep Impact.
So even though Deep Impact sounds like an adult film.
Right. Armageddon's tough, man. That was a tearjerker back in the day. That if you wanted to see a bunch of 15 to 30-year-old men crying, just go check out Armageddon while it was in the theaters, because as soon as the Steven Tyler Aerosmith song came on, it was game over. Well, I don't know. I really liked Armageddon. I think I'd put Armageddon for me over Twister, but it's close.
Nick 1000% agree with you because of the tearjerker. Dude, that movie made everybody cry.
I don't want to close my eyes.
That ending scene. No, what are you doing? Hey, she's your daughter now.
Yeah.
She's your baby. Take care of my little girl. Oh,
yeah. Oh,
that's it. Got everybody.
So it looks
that's the deep impact right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like it's moving up in the brackets, and then you got to match it up against another number one seed. Where do you stack Twister versus Independence Day? See, I'd go.
I put those as like two. It's weird because like it is. I don't know if it's necessarily like a natural disaster. Like, cause
I'm sorry, my bad. Are we doing natural disasters, or are we just doing? Disasters?
I was
just doing whatever. But like for me, it's tough for me to compare the two.
I would have to go Independence Day.
Well, I think what considers it a disaster movie is because of that like 10-minute scene of when like every city just.
No, it is. I still would get. I would give Independence Day because it also had a sci-fi element to it too. It was more than just a disaster film.
Yeah, it's like
I would have to give it Independence Day.
It's like the first and only merging of sci-fi and disaster.
Yeah, it's definitely still in the category for sure.
Yeah.
So last round of Twister versus disaster movies: Day After Tomorrow, 2012, or Twister.
I liked Day After Tomorrow. I know it's not a beloved movie, but I hold fond memories of seeing that in theaters. I know it's not a good movie, but I do enjoy it a lot.
So you put that above Twister?
That's tough. I'll go Twister above it still. Just because I know it's not that good of a movie. I think Twister is actually a good movie. I don't think it's as much of a guilty pleasure as Day After Tomorrow is. But I might have to watch Day After Tomorrow now. I might have to put that on tonight.
If I can go from 3 to 1, I would go 2012, Day After Tomorrow, and then Twister. Because I feel like, and this happens, I feel like in a lot of Roland Emmerich movies, he gets you hooked so fast, you know, and in all of his movies, I think, he gets you hooked really fast. He puts on this awesome display of visual and special effects, and then it's almost like he always takes everything as like a sprint, not a marathon. So then you start to see his movies kind of lose steam, but then pick it up towards the climax. Where I think Twister doesn't slow down. I think Twister is a really good paced movie.
So Twister's your 3. Then you said
no. Twister's my 1. I would say 3 is 2012. Number 2 would be Day After Tomorrow.
Okay, so Twister would be your number 1.
Yep. Yeah.
Mine would flip. Twister's my number 3.
Okay.
Nick, I'm with you. I like Day After Tomorrow, bro. I don't mind it.
It's a guilty pleasure. I enjoy it.
I recently watched it.
I like it too.
Like I recently watched it, Jimmy, when they were drinking and when they knew they were gonna die by the screens in like Norway, when they were drinking to keep warm. The fact that his father went back to get his son when everyone said it was crazy. It had a little bit of everything.
That's another star-studded cast.
I would put that 2. And number 1 though, I can't say how much I love Armageddon. I can't.
Yeah.
Armageddon to me is the best one out of the 3.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go Armageddon 3, Day After Tomorrow 2, Twister 1.
Oh,
so all similar ballparks. Yeah. So let's get into right. Yeah, let's get into our next segment. I did this wrong, so we're going to readjust it. So this is our 2 truths and a lie. I put 2 lies and 1 truth. So you guys have to tell me what the 1 truth is out of these 3 facts.
I like it.
I botched it. I was reading through. I was like, wait a second. 2 of these aren't real. So let's go through these. So number 1, the CGI cow picked up by the Twister sisters was originally a CGI zebra from the 1995 Jumanji. Number 2, because of the image of Dorothy and the name used, there was a drawn-out lawsuit between MGM and Warner Brothers because they wanted payment for image use and likeness rights. Number 3, on May 24th, 1996, a tornado destroyed screen number 3 at Canview Drive-In. It's a drive-in movie theater in Ontario, and it was showing Twister at the time.
Oh, that is weird.
So which one of those 3 is the truth? It's great podcasting.
I'm going to go 2.
We're really thinking.
I'm going to go 2 because from recently watching Twister, I don't remember Dorothy's face being on Dorothy. I believe in the original, Dorothy's face was on there.
Okay.
I believe the second one, the whole thing about Dorothy and them wanting money for it, I believe in the theaters or on DVD when it first came out, under Dorothy, there was a little small face, almost like the Wendy's
Yeah.
character face. I believe Dorothy's face was on there. But that could be a Mandela effect. It could be in
Yeah.
my head. But if I had to go with those three, it would be Dorothy. I remember seeing that face.
Yeah.
I could just want some Wendy's though.
So I want to lean towards that one. I feel like the zebra one. I don't know. Maybe it's the whole Mandela thing too. I feel like if that was supposed to be like a funny Easter egg or something. Fuck. God, they all sound so believable. You know what? I'm gonna go with Diaz. I might be wrong, but we'll go down with the ship together, buddy.
All right.
Dorothy, baby. I swear, I think there was a face. I kind of want to look that up.
I think you're right. I didn't. Yeah.
So, Jimmy, you were originally right. The truth is the
damn
CGI
it.
cow picked up is the zebra from Jumanji. There is an image of Dorothy. It's still in the movie. I think it's not on all of them, but I remember. But I think in the opening scene, when we're seeing Dorothy for the first time, it's still there. Yeah, but I completely made the second one up. But the third one was kind of like a half truth because there was a tornado that ripped through the drive and destroyed it. It wasn't showing Twister, but it kind of became a urban legend. People were saying it was playing Twister, and it wasn't.
That's funny.
But
that movie rights one on you was pretty good. Way to think about that.
Yeah. I looked that up. I was like, what studios? If it's a different studio, I can kind of fudge it right there. So, Jimmy, why don't you take us to the quote corner? Why don't you present us some of the quotes? Because I got one that's my favorite, but I'm curious what everybody else has.
All right.
This movie's got a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, there's the famous cow quote, which is always a great one.
We got cows.
Another cow. Actually, I think that's the same one. That's one of my favorites. There is the classic Bill Paxton. Joe, things go wrong. You can't explain it. You can't predict it. Killing yourself won't bring your dad back, which is real sympathetic, by the way.
Kind of a low blow there. Bill Paxton sort of playing a douchebag in this movie a little bit.
No, the best is right after that he goes, but I'm standing right here.
Yeah.
I'm standing right here.
You can love me, but not your dead dad.
I'm sorry that he died, but that was a long time ago. You gotta move on. Stop living in the past and look what's right. Look what you got right in front of you. What are you saying? Me, Joe. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Dustin or Dusty.
Yeah.
Red meat. We crave sustenance.
I think that was used by everybody for years. I think everybody just said that quote. Anytime they went out to dinner, anytime somebody asked them what they wanted for food, that was the go-to quote.
Because Billy is the extreme.
The extreme. They love Billy. They put him on such a high pedestal. They all just adore him.
Yeah.
As far as the quotes, those are pretty much those are
memorable.
Yeah, red meat. We need sustenance.
Well, I got one. I got one.
Yeah.
You got full coverage on that truck?
Oh yeah.
Liability.
That's why I think she might not have cared about her truck as much because she's like, well, I got full coverage. I think my favorite. Yeah. Okay. Go.
I got one more from Dusty.
Okay. I think it might be the one that I was holding on to.
Where he goes up to Melissa.
Yep. This is I love this one.
The suck zone.
Yes.
It's point basically when the Twister sucks you up. That's not the technical term for it, obviously.
That was mine. I love it. It's the suck zone. Oh,
dude! How about when he tells Billy she just missed the truck? Exquisite.
Yeah. He has no care for human life at all.
Well,
I mean, he does and he doesn't. He's just so nonchalant about everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, those are... Those are pretty. Those are pretty good. Those are classic '90s quotes.
Oh
Yo,
yeah,
there's one thing. There's one thing in there I only saw because of the captions. When he gets in a fight with Jonas, one of them, you could tell they didn't want this movie to be rated R because one of them quotes, "Don't worry, man, he's just a corporate kiss butt."
they were trying to stick it to that PG-13 rating.
Oh, I've got one more Dusty quote.
Oh god, his are the best.
Meg's Gravy is famous. It's practically a food group.
Yes.
the giant, giant bowl full.
The ladle of gravy.
Yo, she had a good line too. Where do you get all this beef from? You see my cow outside?
Yeah.
No. Oh.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
This was a quotable movie. For as much we talked about it not really having a lot of dialogue because it's with those action movies that takes up a lot of screen time. The dialogue was still catchy. They're very quotable, and I think people will still be using those. Let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll each give you one good thing from this movie, one bad thing from this movie, and one ugly thing that may just not have aged well. So, for me, the one good thing that I took out of this was I talked about this at the beginning, but again, the Twisters CGI, the actual CGI of the tornadoes, and not just the CGI, but the audio as well, a mixture between CGI and practical effects on set. I think the actual tornadoes touching down and tornadoes destruction, especially for 96, was amazing that it held up as well as it did today. So Diaz, what's your good?
My good is the sound, the fact it ushered in a whole type of new movie. Mm-hmm. It ushered in what surround sound was going to be.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. For me, the good, kind of piggybacking off of Nick with the the special effects. I like the visual effects, especially like when you see the destruction after with no CGI, cars torn. It kind of reminded me of that very old school Universal ride. I think it was like Earthquake or something like that.
They did have a Twister experience as well at Universal.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, but I remember you're in the subway or something, or
that would be Disaster.
Disaster. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. And that's kind of reminded me of the cars turned over. They're trying to, especially when they're in
the explosions were great too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So yeah, I would kind of just piggyback off of Nick. I just think for 96, 28 years ago, if that, yeah, I mean, they're going to be a little dated, especially what we experience today, but I still think it holds up enough for sure.
Yeah. So the bad I have, it's not because of their performances, but I think they just bloated the cast too much. Yeah, I would have liked to have known some of these other cast members, but because there was so many, you couldn't really differentiate a lot of them. Them as the guy who got hit in the head and the girl with the glasses. I know nothing about her.
Yeah,
it's a lot. It's just, I feel like if you just trimmed 2 to 3 people to start with, or if you just killed off 1 or 2 in the beginning, I think it would have helped it for me because I just want to know more about the cast, and you don't get that. It really is Joe and Bill and the merry band of misfits essentially. But what else what do you guys have for your bad?
You want to take this one, Diaz, or?
I don't like the lack of death. I hate to sound like a narcissist.
Yeah.
But a movie about disasters, I would expect death.
Yeah, especially a prominent character.
Yeah. There wasn't enough dying in this. No one to have no one to avenge. Well, her father, obviously, but there wasn't enough of that.
Yeah, and we talked about at the beginning, it had the stakes so high, and then it kind of took you a little downhill because it starts with F1, F2, builds back up, but again, without any casualties, you don't feel the true danger.
They could have killed Melissa. They killed Melissa.
Yeah, she's useless in this thing.
She was leaving him anyway. Kill her ass.
And I feel like most of the tornadoes they chase are in the beginning kind of in wide open fields or in in that little pond area or whatever. So there's not really. It's only until they get, I feel to the movie theater and Aunt Meg's neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Because even in the climax, they're on an empty highway or a back road or
it's a long stretch.
Yeah. I think the bad for me looking back is probably Bill's treatment of poor Melissa. He, he bails, like he ditches her. I know it's supposed to drive the point of like rekindling the love for Joe, but he ditches her for some weirdo all the time. He's just like, yeah, you'll be fine. Go with Dusty, like, and then
Out of all guys,
and then he kind of confesses her love through that awesome CB radio that picks up anything, and like she overhears it. I would just kind of say the bad for me is, Bill's. I don't think intentional mistreatment of Melissa, but definitely like she took a back seat real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll jump right in and piggyback off of you now because I had that as my ugly, which doesn't age well. Is just his treatment of Melissa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
How about the fact that he dragged her along to get the divorce papers finalized? Still, like,
and she wanted.
That's a private matter.
Yeah,
that's a private matter, and you bring her into the. She's not a storm chaser. Like you bring her into countless danger moments, and you treat her like shit, and you pawn her off, and you confess your love to Joe while you're spending all of your time with her. It's not like he was like, hey, you go with Dusty, I'm going to go with Rabbit. Joe's going to lead up front. No, he's just on a date with his ex-wife or current wife still. But yeah, I think that was a pretty bad moment right there. But Diaz, what do you have for the ugly? Something that just didn't hold up.
That is the ugly thing in this whole movie. That. And another thing is, why would he be bringing her to? Because remember, in the beginning, she's like, "Oh, she hadn't signed it yet." No, honey, we're just gonna go visit her for. Why were they visiting her if he told her she signed the papers already?
Yeah,
like what was Melissa thinking? But my ugly is the way he treated her and her fucking acting in general. She sucked.
She could have been gone. This is a character that could have been eliminated, and the story would have been the same. You didn't have to have the current girlfriend there to push the point home that they're not divorced yet. She still kind of has feelings. He's doing his own thing, and then have them reconnect. Like you didn't have to have the girlfriend.
We did a podcast and we talked about how we hated one character for no damn reason. What character was it?
Oh,
in
man.
General.
No, there was a girl character that we absolutely hated that everyone butchered on this podcast. I think Melissa's worse than her.
Does it go back to our... Oh, you know what it was? I believe it was Audrey from Godzilla.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yep.
They probably work together.
Well, that's the whole thing, dude. You're totally right because, like, Bill Paxton could have come down. The whole point was to him get the divorce papers signed, and without
but Melissa didn't know that. Like, exactly. Melissa didn't know that's why they were going there.
I think.
So why were you going there?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how it could have Bill Paxton didn't even need to date anyone. He just needed like his divorce paper signed, and like all of a sudden, like it rekindles their love as they're chasing storms together. Like, I totally agree. I think it was an easy cop out for her to just like break up with him and just I'm going back home and like give the ring back and stuff. I think that was an easy cop out.
What she did have a good quote we forgot about when we I don't know, I had it written down, I just didn't say it. When you told me you chased tornadoes, I thought it was a metaphor for something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
another good one.
So she had one good line. She had one good thing.
She snuck one in there.
Yeah. I would say the ugly for me, it's just like, it's the opening. It's not the it's right after the opening scene. Which blows my mind for how great most of the special effects are in this movie. It's where it's like the weather satellite and the Earth, and
that was not great.
The outline of the United States.
Yeah, it looks really. I mean, like they totally dropped the ball there. I guess for as great as the special effects are in this movie, that was pretty bad. And that's like I guess that's like a reach, but it's so noticeable, like right off the bat.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our time machine time, where we kind of play with this movie through different decades and years. So cast swap. You can cast swap any TV, movie, whatever, of any decade, whatever. What are we going to cast swap this? So obviously you need a pretty large ensemble. So I'll kick off with mine because I picked from something that I knew had a lot of people in it, and I kind of just navigated it that way. After Joe, Billy, Melissa, Dustin and Rabbit, I kind of just filled in the blanks because, again, you don't really know too much about the other people. But I'm going to use, and it's funny you mentioned it earlier, Jimmy, I'm using Stranger Things as my cast swap.
Okay.
So I'm going to have Millie Bobby Brown as the lead with Joe. I'm going to have, I know there's a little bit of an age difference, but I'm going to have Joe Keery as Billy, who was Steve Harrington in Stranger Things. Melissa will be Natalie Dwyer, or Dyer, who plays Nancy. This is a little bit of an older jump, but for Dustin, I'm going to have David Harbour. I want him to be like the old, like, goofy guy who's like stuck in his ways, like
the storm chaser that's been chasing for way too long.
Yes, just like very inappropriate, like not with the times, because his character in Twister kind of is that, like, he's sort of out of pocket. He doesn't necessarily fit. I want him to be more of that outcasty, like, maybe inappropriate, and then you can kill him off or something like that. But I would have Harbo in that spot. Rabbit, I would have as Finn Wolfhard. Alan, I would have as Noah Schnapp, who plays Will. Preacher would be Charlie Heaton, who plays Jonathan Byers. Belzer would be Gatton Matarazzo, who's Dustin. And then Lawrence, I would have as Caleb McLaughlin, who plays Lucas in Stranger Things. So really, it's Millie Bobby Brown, Joe Keery as the leads, and then you have David Harbour kind of bringing up the rear and the third billing. But that's who I put as my cast swap for New Age Twister.
Okay, nice. What about you, Diaz?
I'm going with an ensemble from the Scream series. Give me the cast from Scream.
Okay.
Give me Nev Campbell as Joe. Give me Courtney Cox as the girlfriend that's getting dumped.
Yep.
What is it? Paxton's character I want
Bill,
as, and Bill's gonna be Matthew Lillard. It's gonna be Stu. Stu's gonna be Bill. I'm putting him in that role because I want the villain to be David Arquette. I want him to be Jonas, the arrogant. It's gonna be Jonas. Yep. Randy, Jamie Kennedy's gonna be Dustin's character. Dustin.
All right. Yeah.
I'm gonna break it down like that. And the aunt is not gonna be an aunt. I'll recast Joe's aunt as her sister, and it's Drew Barrymore.
Nice.
The nice homely Drew Barrymore will be the aunt.
The Southern girl.
That would be exactly. It would be. I'd take the Scream cast and move them around and just fill it in. Billy will play some character. Rose McGowan can play some character. I'd put them in mixed match.
I like areas. That. That's a good pull.
Interesting. Well, we already mentioned this, and I think it's a large ensemble cast, just, perfectly made for this movie. Give me the cast of Independence Day. Now, give me Bill Pullman as Bill. Give me Margaret Collin, who played Jeff Goldblum's ex-wife in that movie, as Joe. Okay. Give me, because it's right in the mid-'90s, so give me Fresh Prince Will Smith as Rabbit. Or no, as Dusty.
Dustin, yeah.
Funny Will Smith, like kind of the out of pocket. I would totally, yeah.
Also out of place comedy. He's the black guy chasing down tornadoes. You can play that aspect of it all day.
Yeah, the comedy writes
There was no minorities in this, by the way.
Yeah.
I would take Jeff Goldblum as Rabbit, map reader, everything like that. Give me... you know what? I would gender swap. Instead of Aunt Meg, give me Jeff Goldblum's father in that movie as the crazy uncle, Judd Hirsch. And that's who they go visit. That's who Bill Pullman goes to, and his crew of storm chasers go for steaks. They go to Judd Hirsch's house.
All right.
Yeah.
Uncle Greg instead of Aunt Meg. Uncle Greg.
Yeah, there you go.
Uncle Meg. Just keep it as Meg.
But yeah, I would take the cast of Independence Day because I think, it really, obviously, like, it's the Bill Paxton, the Helen Hunt show, and then, like, Philip Seymour Hoffman is the comic relief. But, like, other than that, it's really hard because everyone else has, like, very small roles for the most part in this movie. But if you give like someone like Jeff Goldblum like the map reading, he could be like that sciencey nerdy guy that we all love, and Will Smith, and oh my god, you know what? And you put Jazzy Jeff in there. They're sure
just to get thrown out of a house, just to get thrown out for the tornado.
He plays the cow.
Is he the cat? No, is he the casualty? Jazzy Jeff. When the finger of God strikes down, Jazzy Jeff sacrifices himself to get Dorothy up there.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk time warp. This is something that we will probably have more answers to in a couple of weeks when we see Twisters. But how does a movie like this look today? Is it this prominent? Is it, with the CGI, obviously it's going to look a lot better. Do you think they would make the smart move of maybe downsizing the cast? Would they add the casualties? How do you see this movie being today, and or just predictions for what you think Twisters might be? Because I'm very curious if they have any relations to these characters. Like, I kind of want these characters, like Glenn Powell, I want him to be like Bill Paxton's son or something like that,
That's
or
where I
something
feel
like
like it's
that.
gonna go, or he's like a nephew or something. I don't know. I feel like it's gonna. How do you tie these movies in together? And especially after a long hiatus with these franchises, like look at like Ghostbusters, Afterlife and Frozen Empire. They tied it in with like a new generation, but kept the connection between the old cast by having like it's
Dusty's
Spanglers.
van. Dusty's van. What was it called?
I think it was the Barn Burner.
They'll have something called the barn burner. They'll
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
like a truck or something.
So
What's that barn? Like they'll have that'll be a little Easter egg for Dustin. One of the vehicles or something to be called, or like the app or something on their phone, the barn burner app, or it's
Yeah.
gonna be very technological. It's gonna be, yes, it'll be probably still in like the boonies. They might show the Twisters hitting a town. There
Yeah.
will be more death, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. There's gonna be death. There's gonna be casualties.
Yeah.
One of the main characters is dying. There's no way.
Mm.
You
Glenn
can't
Powell.
have you can't have another opportunity to have a cast of people and not higher the stakes for the death. There
Yeah.
has to be a death.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah.
Time Machine double feature. You could pick any movie to pair this up with. What are you watching at the Time Machine double feature? Twister and what?
Oh, easy. Twister and Sharknado.
Like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. How can one not go without the other?
Right. They go hand in hand. They both have flying animals.
Yeah, that's true.
I was gonna say Sharknado, but I felt someone else would say it, so I said The Perfect Storm. I wanted to see because
Good one.
I wanted to see the effects because it was a time jump. How big of a time difference was that?
4 years.
5 years? 4 years?
Yeah.
I wanted to see how the technology would be different.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd probably see like a triple feature to try to see like how much improvements in technology does it hold up against this.
Yeah.
So would it have held up against Perfect Storm? And I believe it did. I believe it was better.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I wanted to see it to see which one was more high stakes.
Yeah. I paired it up with another one we were talking about earlier. I said Twister and Armageddon. Just like two kind of different disasters, but still in that world, which I think Twister kind of kicked off for them. I think Armageddon can kind of thank Twister for paving the way for these disaster movies to take place. Before we sign off, let's do our popcorn scale. We're going to rate this movie on a scale of 1 through 5. 1 being burnt, terrible, bad movie, stay away. 5 being that perfectly golden buttered, great flick. Where do you rank Twister on the popcorn scale?
What do you think,
Jimmy?
Me? Okay.
Me? I'll go. I was asking you. I'll
no.
go. It's fine. I just didn't want to cut anybody off.
No.
We're once again great podcasting. Our moments of silence. That's for you, our fans, to chime in.
Yeah,
like
that's where you can put your thoughts in.
That's like those the Dora the Explorer episodes. What do you think?
He's
You're
on the
right.
left. He's on the right. You did great.
Show me the hat. Right here. You're right.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm gonna go 4 out of 5.
Okay.
The reason it gets 4, the reason it doesn't get 5, like I said, not enough. Not enough. I don't want to say casualties, but not enough
stakes.
High stakes.
Yeah.
Stakes weren't high enough, and Melissa sucked that bad to bring it down from 5 to 4.
Wow.
Her character really wasn't necessary. He could have dumped her after the first tornado, and they still could have done the love chase and try to rekindle the flame.
Right.
She was a waste of screen time. So that'll bring it from a 5 to a 4 for me. Everything else is all right.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a solid 3. It's a good movie. Yeah, middle of the pack. I mean, it for what
above
it was,
average. 2.5 right in the middle. So
yeah, it's a fun film. I mean, like I say, you get what you pay for. It's a fun disaster, kicking off the summer blockbusters and stuff. It's not something that's otherworldly or whatever. So it's kind of just right there. It's a movie you can always just throw on, when you have nothing else to watch, and you just still get the same enjoyment out of it. So yeah, I'll go with this 3.
I'm going to split the difference. I had 3.5 as kind of my mark for this movie. I think it's a full point above average. I do enjoy it. There's things that I think we've discussed on this pod that we probably could have swapped out or adjusted to make it that much better. But especially for being 96, like this thing is just it's amazing we got this at that year. It really is. But that's what I think about Twister. I love it. Let us know in the comments what you think about the 1996 movie Twister. Be sure to follow us on all of our social platforms, Instagram, Popcorn Time Machine, and you can find us on YouTube. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave that 5-star review for us. But let's send this movie back to 1996 and begin the reprogramming of the Popcorn Time Machine, and we will see you all next time.